Hey there, friends. Scott here. I've been working on an essay for the past couple days that was really flowing well and then completely fell apart. So now it is one of the 80 essays in my draft folder, which may or may not ever see the light of day. We'll see. But I did want to share some thoughts today. I was at the No Kings protest last weekend. So happy that I went in Ferndale, Michigan. Extraordinary turnout, so much energy. And, I think that I was thinking about how when I moved to San Francisco, after college, I knew I was gay. I hadn't come out yet. I moved to San Francisco and I knew I wasn't the only person who was gay, of course, but also felt really alone in my gayness because I hadn't come out and was keeping it quiet. And remember, going to a gay bar in San Francisco for the first time and being like, oh my God, just being surrounded by homos, and how hope-filled that moment was and how exciting that moment was. And it was like, I knew I wasn't the only gay person in the world, but suddenly I was surrounded by a ton of gay people. And so I got the experience of seeing and feeling that I wasn't the only gay person in the world. And that's kind of what the protest last weekend felt like for me. And every time I go to protests, it's what it feels like. I know I'm not the only person that does not support or like what's happening with this government in this country and the horrors that we're seeing in so many different ways. And yet being in a crowd of thousands of people allowed me to really see and feel the energy of others who are just declaring this is not okay. We can create something better than this. So it was revitalizing in that way, because my tendency can be to isolate, and when I do isolate, what can happen is that I start to feel even more powerless and more paralyzed. Like there's nothing that I can do that's going to make a difference within the context of everything going on, when of course there's some, we can always make a difference. And one difference we can make, or one difference to be aware of, is just that we are always in relationship with ourselves through all of this, right? You wake up with yourself, you go to bed with yourself, you're in your mind, in your body for all the seconds in between waking up and going to bed, which is to say that it's still an incredibly important time. It's always an incredibly important time to prioritize your relationship with yourself, so that even within all of the insanity and injustice and the warring that's going on, ideally we can create a bit of peace in our beings just by aligning what's happening in our hearts, right, with how we're showing up in the world. That what I find is that the more I align my heart's calling with my actions, with how I'm showing up in the world, the more peaceful I feel. And each one of us has to figure that out for ourselves, right? Like, what is your heart calling on you to do? And I don't even mean to do in the sense of like to be on the front lines of activism, unless that is what your heart's calling you to do, of course. I just mean in general, like if we are intentional about checking in with ourselves, not just with our minds directives, which are so often mired in fear and conditioning and insecurity and anxiety, but the clarity, the love that's within our hearts, the clarity that's within our soul. What are they asking us to do right now? In relationship with ourselves, with others, and then what are steps we can take to honor those deeper, more love-centered, peace-centered calls. So that's something I'm thinking about a lot. My spiritual path, my relationship to God, to Source, is ultimately what is most important to me in this lifetime. again, because I understand that I am with myself through all of this. And if I can't, if I'm not being intentional about creating harmony first and foremost with how I'm experiencing myself, it's going to be that much harder for me to be intentional about creating harmony with others, and I've been living for just in a state of rage, not every moment of every day, but a lot of moments in every day these days. And I know that I'm not alone. There's so much anger, and anger, yes, is a valuable tool, and we need more than just anger, because the thing my anger wants to do in my mind is to create an us versus them reality, is to want to turn this into sides. And I'm really committed to not doing that. I don't see the benefit in doing that, because ultimately, in order to move forward in any sort of good way, in any sort of positive way, in any sort of way that has the potential to create something better in this country and in the world, at some point we have to transcend this us versus them thing. It's just a war. It's just a war. And my mind goes there so easily. I read and see comments, people cheering on these ICE raids, and these ICE raids for me are so horrific and barbaric, and my mind just wants to judge anyone that could work for ICE, anyone that could cheer on ICE, watching these families be torn apart and knowing it's not just about criminals at all, like that it was just all a lie, right? So my mind, you can hear it in my voice. I'm judging all of it. I'm judging anyone who believes it. I'm judging anyone who can see what's happening and not be horrified by it, not allow themselves to be in their hearts with it. And yet, it's not where I want to live, because I also understand that in this country and in the world, but certainly in this country, we are seeing such different information depending on what media we're reading. We're in different realities. Literally, it feels like half the country's in one reality, the other half of the country's in a different reality. We're on different news feeds and social media feeds, being fed information to manipulate what we think, right? So we're all being manipulated, and then it's incredibly difficult within the umbrella of all this manipulation to figure out what feels true, right? And again, when I'm in my heart, these types of things become a lot clearer, because I feel like my heart is an expert at looking at a situation, being with a situation, and just knowing, is this foundationally in love and in compassion and in kindness or not, right? And I do trust that intuition based on what I'm seeing. I mean, we're all seeing, I understand that we're all getting information from different places, and yet some of these videos I believe that we are all seeing, and it's like I don't know how else to say it. You're either in your heart with it or not. It's like this is either an affront to love, or it is, part of love. Even an affront to love is not accurate, because love just loves. So, but I think you get what I'm saying. So what's the point? Take care of yourself within this, right? And know that everyone has an opinion about how everyone else is supposed to show up within this time. And ultimately, you are going to be most affected, I believe, by your own choices and the ways in which you're judging your own choices. So just remembering that we have to face ourselves all the time, and that it is possible to create harmony with how we're feeling about things and with how we're showing up in the world, which is to say, if you want to see a more loving world, are you showing up with that love? Are you modeling that love? Even in your activism, even with your anger, even with whatever else, like foundationally, my greatest resistance and objection to this president and this government is that I feel no compassion. I do not feel that foundationally what's going on is coming from a place of love and kindness and compassion, which means it's not in service to love and kindness and compassion. So if that isn't the foundation from which we're seeking to create change, then the change that we're going to create is not going to be in harmony with those energies that I see as the most important energies we have on this planet. So the thing I need to ask myself again is, how am I showing up in harmony with those energies? And I'm struggling now, and that's okay too, right? Like, I'm angry so much of the time because, for obvious reasons. So yeah, and I just think it's always an important time to take care of yourself, and this is certainly an important time to take care of yourself, especially if, well, in general, and especially, I guess, if you are choosing to be more active, if you're choosing to if you're participating in activism, if you're engaging in difficult conversations, if you're standing up for the things that you believe in, that can be really exciting, especially when you're connecting with community. That for me was the best part of being at the protest, just being in community with others who have aligned values. I think that that's important to see, and prioritizing community. Whether or not it's activism community or just recognizing that we are wired for connection as human beings, at a time where things can feel so dire, so authoritarian, so ugly. Are you being intentional about creating connections with others that feel good or feel light or feel joyful or feel active and hopeful because of it? Now is as important a time as ever to take care of yourself. Creating things, I think, is also a really helpful thing to do in times like this, because I see the ways in which these energies and this government and just the warring and the injustice, I can go numb and just feel like just totally shutting down. And yet anytime I'm creating anything, which can be writing, it could be cooking a meal, for some of you gardening, whatever it is that looks like creation for you, the energy of creation can be a really helpful and positive thing. Even if it's just creation for yourself, even if you're the only one who's aware of it. When I'm washing the dishes and the ones that don't go in the dishwasher and I'm laying out on a towel, I always lay them out in an order that feels kind of artistic or whatever. And it always feels kind of joyful just to do a little thing like that feels creative in the moment, helps me get a little more centered in the present moment, And then the last thing I just want to remind us all is that we are imbued at our deepest levels, I believe, with a profoundly loving heart and profoundly peaceful soul, which is to say that within you now and always there's deep peace and there's deep love within you. And it can be extraordinarily helpful to be intentional about connecting with those places inside that are not bound by the conditioned and fearful limitations of our mind, that are willing to open ourselves up and connect not only with our own humanity, but willing to see the humanity in others, even those with whom we disagree with profoundly and aggressively. Right? And what is the reason for that? Why do we need to do that? Why do we need to hold our hearts open to people whom we feel are doing abhorrent things in this world? Well, you don't need to do anything you don't want to, but I feel the benefit of doing that is, one, we don't need to compromise any of our convictions in order to do that. We can still be as vocal as we want to be, but just remembering at the same time that we are dealing with human beings and that we all struggle, we all suffer, It's our life journey that gets us to where we are right now. Had we walked in their shoes, we might have landed in the same spot. Who's to say? But perhaps most importantly is that there is no possibility of creating a better society rooted more deeply in love and compassion and kindness and forgiveness if in trying to create it, we're not honoring those energies inside of ourselves. We're dehumanizing others and shaming others and all of these other things we're all doing with each other. All we will create from that is more of the same. Maybe with different leaders in charge, but it will be more of the same. And so just remembering that what you have most control over is yourself and how you're showing up, the words you're using, the actions you're taking. And that the more often we can align these things with love, the better off we all are. And again, I want to just be really clear. I'm struggling as much as I ever have with that right now. I can get back to love. I'm good about getting back to love, but I am living in my head a lot right now and in anger. And I also see the anger's good. It's a good energy. It's a change maker. But anger alone is not going to create healing. It will create change. But without love, no possibility for healing. So I guess that's some of the things I felt like sharing today. I love you all. I'm just going to read one passage from my book, Enough As You Are, about community, and we'll close it out from there. I've shared this before, I think, but find people who can handle your darkest truths, who don't change the subject when you share your pain or try to make you feel bad for feeling bad. Find people who understand we all struggle, some of us more than others, and that there's no weakness in admitting it. In fact, few things take as much strength. Find people who want to be real, however that looks and feels, and who want you to be real too. Find people who get that life is hard and who get that life is also beautiful and who aren't afraid to honor both of those realities. Find people who help you feel more at home in your heart, mind, and body, and who take joy in your joy. Find people who love you for real and who accept you for real, just as you are. They're out there, these people. Your chosen family is waiting for you. Don't stop searching until you find them. If you're hearing that, and some of you hearing that might be like, yeah, I've got my chosen family, I found my people. Some of you might be hearing that and being like, I don't have my people and I don't know where they are. To those of you who are having that experience, I can't encourage you enough to be even more intentional about seeking out community right now. And maybe you are feeling a call to activism, and that is there's a lot of activism happening right now, and that might be a pathway for you. That's one of the great gifts of the internet, is being able to find community online. Search for it, find it. And it's not necessarily easy, of course. And I think the older we get, the harder it can be to establish community. And yet, if we're not being intentional about searching for it, seeking it, creating it, opening up possibilities of creation, we're much less likely to find it. And you can apply that to everything in life, right? The more intentional we are about creating things, the better chance we have about realizing the creation of them. So, deep prayer for all of us that we find community that really enlivens our hearts and uplifts us. And yeah, just sending you all a lot of love during these really, really difficult and heavy times. And just a lot of gratitude for your presence here, and a deep prayer that we may all remember to stay in our hearts and stay in love, even no matter what, a blanket statement, and allow ourselves to see the magic that love can create within whatever we're doing. All right. I love you all so much.